What is up? My name is CJ Finley, and if this is your first time here on my YouTube channel, I just want to say thank you for tuning into this video. In this video, we'll be chatting about what has had the most powerful impact on my health over the past couple years, and that is sleep. So before we get into it, I would love if you could subscribe. On this channel, there'll be more information on health, wealth, and happiness, and everything that you could be doing to thrive on life. Today's topic of conversation is going to be the thing that has impacted my health the most over the past couple years, and that has been the quality of my sleep. Before we get into what improves the quality of your sleep or what could potentially help your sleep, deep sleep, REM, overall total sleep, I'd love to dive into the question that I asked myself first, and that was, what was inhibiting my sleep? Even more so, why did I believe that sleep was a crucial factor in why I wasn't feeling as good as I should have been feeling? So let's backtrack. If you've listened to me before, you know that over the course of my life, I've had celiac disease and other autoimmune conditions, specifically in my digestive system, that have really impacted my overall quality of life. This started when I was a kid, and what it looked like was I was constantly running to the bathroom, constantly in pain, either constipated or having diarrhea. A bunch of problems that I wouldn't really wish upon anybody. And this lasted all through grade school, high school, college, and beyond. And unfortunately, instead of looking internally and fixing my own problems, what I would do is I would drink, smoke, and try to numb the pain that was happening inside my body. Fortunately though, as I got older, I started to get sick. And yes, I say fortunately that I got sick because this caused me to reflect and really take a look at my life. I started journaling on what type of pain I was going through, what my day-to-day looked like, and why I believed that I was having such pain. And for most people out there, if you're listening to this, the problem that I think the society has is we always point somewhere else for the problem instead of looking internally. And that's exactly what I was doing. I was looking externally and blaming external things for the issues that I was having internally. And the way that this showed up was I would go to the doctor and describe my pain, but I would never describe the lifestyle that I was living behind that pain. So I would say, yeah, my stomach's in pain, or I can't sleep, or I feel like I'm anxious or depressed. I could describe all the symptoms, but the reality was I wasn't truthful with the lifestyle that I was living, where I was burning myself out, I was drinking way too much, I was eating processed foods, I wasn't doing the correct recovery practices like I do today. I wasn't looking internally at what I was doing and how I was contributing to my own pain. And this is what eventually led me to sleep, because sleep has always been an issue over my lifetime. And once I started diving into asking my other family members if they suffered from problems with sleep, and they said yes, that's when I started dialing into this. Couple that with the Oura Ring and the WHOOP and all these other technologies that are starting to bring technological advances into how you can look at your sleep and how that has an impact on you. And that's where I kind of started to get obsessed with how can I improve my sleep so it improves the overall quality of my life. So let's dive a little bit into that. That's the backstory, but essentially what got me to almost cure the problems and pain that I was having was looking into what was inhibiting my sleep in the first place. Again, a lot of people will start with, oh, how do I improve my sleep? What things can I add to my life? Rather, I started by looking at what can I take away from my life. So things like alcohol, smoking marijuana, things of that nature, which I thought in some instances would help my sleep, but technologies like the Oura and the WHOOP prove that this was not the case. So for me personally, my journey with sleep started in about October, November of 2019. And that's when I started looking at sleep as the number one priority. Prior to that, it was fitness, getting my exercise in, movement, nutrition, supplements. Sleep was always the one that got the least. At the end of 2019 though, is when I started putting sleep as the top priority, and I started looking at the different data sets that I was acquiring through these technologies. The first thing that I recognized, which I already knew, was that if it's too hot in the room, I do not sleep well. The second thing, also, which I already knew, is that if it wasn't noisy enough, I didn't get enough deep sleep. So I like white noise in the room, so I actually added more white noise. I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But those were the first two things that I knew if I could take away the hot temperature and figure out how I can make my side of the bed cooler than my wife's side of the bed, I think I'm gonna have a better time. And how do I add a little bit more noise so that it's not annoying to her, but at least it gives me enough white noise so that I can really get into deep sleep. Because I'm a light sleeper, any little movement is going to wake me up. Now let's get into some of the things I didn't recognize that I needed to take away. And the first most important one that I could say to anybody, especially males out there, it seems like this affects males more than females as I'm talking to people, is not eating too closely to bed. So I started taking away those little snacks or desserts or even meals after a certain time frame. And what I've realized is for me, my HRV plummets when I eat within 3 hours of my bedtime, and even sometimes 4 hours depending on how big the meal is. So today what I try to do is I try to eat by 5 or 6 p.m. That way by 10:30 when I get into bed, I'm gonna be good to go and set myself up for success in terms of getting enough deep sleep that night. Why does temperature and not eating too close to bed matter as much as I think it does? If I'm gonna look at the data and I'm gonna decipher it, it's because both of those things raise my resting heart rate. So if I eat too close to bedtime, it's gonna raise my resting heart rate, which raises my overall temperature. So if my room is already a little bit warmer, I'm going into bed with a raised heart rate, raised temperature, and my body will be working because it's gonna try and digest that food. So I used to exercise later in the day or later at night, and that would mean I would eat later in the evening. So my body's already ramped up from the exercise, my core temperature is a little bit higher, and then I add the food into the mix, my core temperature stays raised, my heart rate stays raised because my body is working, trying to digest that food, and then I'm trying to put it to sleep. Logically, that just doesn't make sense. And once I started looking at this from a logical standpoint of, okay, now I'm understanding the body a little bit more. If I'm gonna exercise in the evening, I either need to do it fasted, or what I need to do is I need to exercise and then get in an ice bath or some other modality that's gonna lower my resting heart rate and lower my core temperature. That way, setting myself up for success to get good sleep that evening. Another thing that I noticed that a lot of people do, you probably do this every single night, is this. Scroll on your phone. So you're gonna be sitting there up until the point that you get in your bed of the blue light right in front of your face. I haven't looked scientifically into why this causes sleep issues. The reason I haven't really looked into it much is it just makes sense. We weren't meant to sit there and scroll on our phone before we go to sleep. And it's one thing I think everybody can do a little bit less of. So if you are listening to this right now, open up your iPhone or Android, look at how much time you're spending on your phone every single day. And if you want to improve the quality of your sleep, try to lessen that time. So if you're spending 4 hours, try to make it 3. If you're spending 3, try to make it 2. Go from A to B. You don't have to go from A to Z, and just see how it makes an impact on your life. Another factor that I realized was not having caffeine too late in the day. Another logical one, I believe everyone knows that if you have caffeine later in the day, it's gonna impact your sleep. I didn't realize how long that window of caffeine was though. So I know just by testing that if I have caffeine after 3 and I'm trying to go to bed at 10, that's my window. I don't wanna have caffeine after 3. So you really 7 to 8 hours for me is the time frame that I need to cut that caffeine off, or any other supplements that are really gonna stimulate me and keep me awake. The last thing that I needed to get rid of, and again, this is more of a logical one, it doesn't take rocket science to understand this, is I had no routine at night. I would literally just work up to the point that I was trying to get in bed, and if you're all ramped up and you have all these things going on in your mind, it's gonna have an impact on your sleep. Just thinking about it, again, so I don't have to go into the science of this, focus on slowly dialing down your evening. So what that looks like today is I spend about an hour just getting ready for bed, meaning I'll put down the phone, I'll put down the laptop, I'll start winding down in my routine. I'm hesitant to tell people what they should do or what my routine is, specifically because I believe that you should go out and find what works for you. But yes, it's had a major impact on me to focus on my wind down period going into sleep. So those are some of the things that I've taken away in my life, which is, again, the exercise late at night, the eating later at night, the winding myself up later at night, screens at night, we all can agree that these probably have a negative impact on your sleep. The problem, though, is are you willing to look at how you're going about your own life and make adjustments? And here's the adjustments that I made to positively impact my sleep, which has, again, been the number one most important factor to almost curing all my issues in terms of my celiac and autoimmune conditions. The number one thing that I've added to my life is Oura and WHOOP. These technologies have allowed me to see what my deep sleep trends are and start analyzing and then adjusting my habits based on that analysis. So for me, I recognize that eating close to bedtime was just as bad for me as having a couple drinks of alcohol prior to sleeping. I had no clue that that would be the impact of a little bit of food prior to bed for me. Again, this could be different for you, but that's why I say these are the number one most important things, because the only way that you're really gonna see that is if you start tracking it. The second thing for me is temperature is a huge problem for me. My wife likes to keep it a little bit warmer. She'll wear clothes to bed. I will not, and I'll still be the one that is sweating. So what I did was I ordered a chili pad, which will keep my bed at 55 degrees only on my side. That way there's no conflict in our relationship. In the future, I might look into getting something like the 8 Sleep or other products that could potentially keep her side warm and my side cool. That way everybody is happy. The third thing that I added was a second fan in the room. We already had a fan going above us, but we added a box fan, which created a little bit more noise, and actually a noise that I was used to growing up. I always had a box fan, so as soon as I added that in, I also was able to kind of tune out. We live in a city, so there's sometimes random noises or things going on that'll wake me up. We also live in Texas, so it's thunderstorming today, so that could potentially wake me up at night. So the box fan allows me to stay in deep sleep. I recognized through the technologies that I was able to get into deep sleep quickly, but I wasn't able to stay asleep. And that was a huge problem for me. I would constantly wake up through the night, a lot of restfulness, and eventually once I started peeling away all these different layers of what can impact your sleep, my deep sleep has now gone from 1 hour and like 40 minutes to almost 2.5 to 3 hours consistently every night. That is a huge jump within 1 year, and the results of that have really been better digestion, better health overall. I feel good, my skin is better. Everything, it just seems to come together when I get a good night's sleep, and if I can consistently do that, I'm gonna be able to maintain that routine and those habits and ultimately feel my best self. What I'd like to end on is a little quote that I made up, and that's: the presence of today determines your success tomorrow. The presence of today, though, is determined by how do we feel when we wake up in the morning. Well, to have a great morning, it usually is predicated on having a great evening that led up to that morning and a great night's sleep. So if there's one thing I ask of you when you leave this video or listen to this podcast, it's please get out a notebook, just like I have here. Start writing down what your habits are. When do you feel the best? When do you feel the worst? And then start adjusting to making more days turn out to be better days rather than the days and the habits that you have during the worst days. This is gonna have a profound positive impact on your sleep, and more importantly, it's gonna have a positive impact on your life overall. I hope you took something from this episode. If you have, please let me know. I'd love for you to reach out and let me know how you've implemented some of these tips and tricks into your sleep schedule or the other things that have impacted you, your sleep, your life, because I'd love to chat with you about them. Until next time though, this is CJ Finley. Thrive on, y'all.